I want to hear cannons. Three-step drop, goes on the end zone. Caught ball, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans reaches up with one hand and grabs it in.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
We don't even keep score. We just run that up and leave.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up the head to the side at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 29, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Evan Wanish. Tampa Bay Buccaneers football is back. NFL training camp started this week for all 32 teams. Football activity is happening. I mean, this is the very end of that dead point that we dread every single offseason, where you've got to go from the NFL draft to right about now with a whole lot of nothing to talk about. I mean, we had a couple of stories come out. We had a couple of good things regarding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to cover. The return of the creamsicles obviously being a big one for us. But other than that, I mean, it's been radio silence. You know, a couple weeks ago, we got some organized team activities. You got to see a little bit of the rookies, and you got to see a lot of guys running around and impressing fans, coaches, and more in shorts and a t-shirt. But now the team is back in the facility. The veterans have reported. And as Todd Bowles said today, now we're practicing full bore. So a lot of those guys looking to make the most out of the opportunity they are going to have in the coming weeks as we get ready for the 2023 Tampa Bay Buccaneers season. But before we dive into that, Evan, how you doing, my friend? Good to talk to you again. It's been a minute.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Just like you said, finally something to actually talk about that's new, and we're not rehashing the same things over and over. Well, okay, maybe we are rehashing the same things over and over.
Some topics that we find ourselves talking about every single week,
but we actually have new evidence, new things to talk about with those per se. So if we talk about Baker Mayfield versus Kyle Trask for the 1,000th time, now we can actually talk about what we've seen lately, which is Baker Mayfield actually being in a Bucs uniform, not just what we think he'll be, what he actually is. So, it's good this time of year. Obviously, the pads haven't come on quite yet. I believe they're coming on Sunday. So that's when the real football starts. And right now, it's just shorts and T-shirts. Anybody, we've said it a lot, like the Kenny Bell effect we talk about all the time. Like anybody can look good in shorts and T-shirts. It's what happens when you put those pads on. That's what really matters. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. But it is nice just to see football for once. And it's the end of July already. It's funny because we look at this period and you look at, all right, the draft, and then it's a dead period, and you think it's like, man, like that's so long. But at the same time, I'm like, kind of can't believe the season is like basically a month away. Like it's kind of hard to believe that they're playing a preseason game in like 2 weeks. So
17 or 18 days from the day that we're recording this, the Bucs do have a football game, and it hasn't really like sunk in yet.
Yeah, it's strange. And so at the same time, while it has felt like a drag at times when you're in June or early July and there's zero to talk about, still is like, wow, like we are closer than you think. So we're gearing up for another year here.
Yeah, we're also gearing up to get some phone calls from you guys as the phone lines are open. 305-224-1968. And if you're watching live on YouTube, the meeting ID to join is 873-0493-6653. I know it's kind of a new thing that we had for the call-in shows this year. We're trying to implement these for the first time in a couple of years, and the last time we didn't have a Zoom code, but now we do. And if you've listened at all and you love to give us feedback, we'd love to know if you like the new phone system. We like it because it's not as disruptive as the old one. Back when we had to take calls on Skype, man, not only would you hear the phone call coming in, but I would have to drop Evan from the call momentarily, get the caller on, and then get Evan back into the call. And sometimes Evan wouldn't connect, or he would connect and entirely miss the question that was being asked. So we were able to streamline it a little bit, always trying to get better, and excited to get some feedback from you guys. Always love to hear from you. Real quick on the live chat over on YouTube, our buddy on the West Coast, Richard T, checking in, says, good evening, fellas, out there in LA. And MK Mikey Kelly says, what's up, Rhett and Evan? Actually, shout out to Mikey Kelly, by the way. He extended an invite to for me to join him this weekend. I think the Sunday practice at Advent Health Training Center. If I didn't already have a ticket, I would 100% be there. But I'm going to be there regardless, so I will make sure that I run into Mikey Kelly and tell him what's up. But if either of you guys want to call in, we'd love to hear what is on your mind. All right. Let's open things up with the $1 million question, something that we have never talked about on the podcast before, the quarterback battle. So to get everybody up to speed, Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. This is a bona fide battle for QB1, the first one we have seen in Tampa Bay for almost over a decade. And, this is day 2 of training camp. I hate to sit here and say that one guy has the edge already because it is day 2 of training camp. But if the articles, the quotes, and I guess some of the pictures that are coming out from practice indicate anything, at least to me so far, the biggest thing that it indicates is that Baker Mayfield is pretty well liked so far in the facility. Players and coaches alike have a lot of good things to say about him. And that momentum, the way people talk about him, seems like it's kind of headed in that direction. I don't know. I know we kind of touched on this topic before about how for Kyle Trask, it does feel like an uphill battle for him to really turn some heads and get that QB1 job. But so far, people are hype about Baker.
Yeah, and we've talked about this throughout the offseason. Even when Baker Mayfield was signed, it kind of felt like, look, most likely he was going to be the guy. It just... Baker Mayfield was one of the guys when they signed him that you looked at it and said, okay, this is legit competition for Trask, but is it even a competition? And a lot of people have wondered that this offseason. And a lot of people were like, well, if you just decide on Baker Mayfield that don't even have the competition, just name him the starter. Well, I don't know if Baker Mayfield has particularly earned that per se, but I do think that right now, it's clear that Baker Mayfield's the leader of the clubhouse now. Again, you just said it. It's day 2. we are early into this thing, and they have a whole training camp ahead of them. They got at least probably 2 preseason games, which I would expect both Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask to play a decent amount in. This thing isn't over. Now, would it be a surprise to me to see Kyle Trask win the job just outright in training camp? Probably. I would say it would be a surprise.
The biggest, I don't mean to jump on top of you here, but that would be the biggest shock at camp for me. Like, of all the things that we're expecting, Kyle Trask winning the QB1 job is towards the bottom of my list. Like,
assuming there's no injury or anything to Mayfield, like him just beating out Baker Mayfield would be a surprise. Now, hey, anything can happen in the regular season. That doesn't mean I'm not going to say that if Baker Mayfield struggles, the Buccaneers won't look to replace him with a Kyle Trask. That's a whole other can of worms. But like, as far as week 1 starter goes, at this point, and again, a lot can happen, but I think Trask is facing a pretty big uphill battle right now. And I think Mayfield, while Mayfield, he can't, crap the bed, like he can't be terrible, or else like the Buccaneers want to win games. Like, and if Todd Bowles is sitting there and he's looking at it, it's like Trask has just played better, and he's going to go with the guy that gives him the best shot to win, especially when Baker Mayfield's on a 1-year, $4 million contract. You're not tied to him at all. Actually, you have more ties to Kyle Trask because you spent a 2nd-round draft pick on him. So, Todd Bowles is going to do the best guy for the job. However, right now, I would be pretty surprised if it wasn't Baker Mayfield out there in Minnesota week 1.
And the implications for a QB1 job in Tampa Bay right now are obviously much more important, because if you're the Bucs, you're looking for that next long-term guy. So you're looking for more than a player who can just go out there and win the QB job at camp. And I know that not a lot of people have a ton of faith in Baker Mayfield taking this team beyond where they were last year with the greatest quarterback of all time under center. But the fact of the matter is, if you are the Bucs and you have made this investment, from a team building perspective, you're going to have to hitch your wagon to one of these guys, and they're ready to do that. But I do think what makes it so much more important, not only the potential to be the next franchise guy, so the Bucs are not in a situation where they have to draft a quarterback next year. They look for leadership qualities. You're looking for a guy who can do it more than just on the field. And Todd Bowles actually had a pretty good quote come out today. As far as comparing Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield, he said they're different as far as energy. Quote, Kyle has this inner confidence and Baker has a more wear it on your sleeve confidence type of thing. Both are able to get it done effectively, and I think that's how they run the huddle each on their own. It's more about the execution and control of the offense than it is their inner or outer confidence. So obviously they're both playing confident, but when you hear Baker talk about it, when you hear him address the media as to why he is there and why he wants to win this job, he's pretty clear. He's playing with a chip on his shoulder, and that's always kind of been his mentality. But now more so than ever, he knows of all people that this is probably going to be his one, I don't want to say last chance, but one of his last chances to be a bona fide NFL starter. If he can't win this job in Tampa against Kyle Trask, it's going to be tough sledding for Baker Mayfield the rest of his career.
Yeah, I think at this point it is his last chance. Barring an injury, and anything can happen, but like barring an injury to somebody else on another team or in the future or something, that he gets another shot and does well, I have to imagine this is his last chance to like be the guy. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's on his fourth team in a year, a calendar year. Like, eventually the NFL stops giving you chances, and I think 4 is plenty. So, especially quarterbacks. Honestly, quarterbacks do not get many chances. A lot of the time, if you're drafted with a high draft pick and you don't get re-signed or you get traded or released by the team who drafted you, a lot of times you ain't picking up another starting job immediately. Like Marcus Mariota, like that's basically like Baker Mayfield is. Like Marcus Mariota had 2 shots. He got drafted by the Titans, was the starter, didn't do well, got released, and went to the Falcons and was the starter. Then he didn't do well, got released, and now he's on Philly and he's going to be the backup. Like that's 2 shots. Baker Mayfield's gotten 4. So like it's out. Like his time is running out here. It's now or never for Baker Mayfield. But the interesting thing about this battle is that you could say the same exact thing for Kyle Trask. Like the time is now. Like, okay, Baker Mayfield beats him out this year. Let's say Baker Mayfield does not. Let's say he beats him out, but he doesn't return next year in Tampa. You're going to start Kyle Trask for the first time in his career in his 4th NFL season? I don't think so. So, like, the time is now for Kyle Trask also. And that's the interesting thing about this battle is both guys should be plenty desperate because they're NFL. Now, I mean, to be fair, Kyle Trask may have a little bit more of an NFL future. A team could give him a shot, a team that's looking for, well, he never got a shot in Tampa. Let's give him a shot here. That's a little bit different. But I do think as far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go, you're looking at 2 guys that should be pretty desperate to win that quarterback battle. And I think that's a good thing because, competition breeds the best out of people.
Now, for the people who are interested in when we're going to get a clear-cut answer on a QB1, Todd Bowles was asked. He said he does have a timetable in his head. He's obviously not going to wait around until the regular season. But The question then becomes, how long are they going to drag this out? Are we thinking that by the second preseason game, we're going to know going into that, hey, this guy's probably played well enough to be your starter? Or do you legitimately see this as something that could last all the way up until that final preseason game?
Yeah, I think by the second preseason game, I think the fans are going to know. And like people like us that are like kind of, fringe media, whatever, they're going to know. The team won't come out and say it, I don't think. Like, I don't think Todd Bowles is going to come out a day before the second preseason game or even right after the second preseason game and say Baker Mayfield's my starter or Kyle Trask is my starter. But like, I think by the time that second preseason game rolls around, you're going to be like, yeah, about 99% sure it's this guy. And now, I think while it won't be immediately after the second preseason game, I do expect it to probably be like before the third preseason game because What might happen is if it's Baker Mayfield, I could see them holding Baker Mayfield out of the third preseason game to avoid any injury and just have Kyle Trask play, most basically the entire first half, that have John Wolford finish it up or something. But I could see them wanting to name the quarterback before the third preseason game, so they're able to protect their starter and not have to throw both Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask out there in the third and final preseason game.
So I wanted to talk some more about training camp battles. Before we do that, I wanted to kind of put a pin on this quarterback talk and I guess pump up our guy Kyle Trask a little bit. It's the least we could do, right? I mean, we gotta find some positivity for this guy somewhere. And something that we heard a lot out of day 2 of Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp is that Kyle Trask looking a lot lighter on his feet, huh? Increased mobility is the latest on Kyle Trask from NFL training camp. So, I mean, what are your thoughts here? I guess while we are spending time and talking about it, I will say that one of the things that I have noticed about Kyle Trask during his last couple of off seasons here, he can be mobile. He's kind of like a Jameis Winston, where once he does get out in the open field and he's running, he looks a little goofy.
Kind of, yeah. I think Winston was more mobile than him, though, and Winston was definitely more elusive,
maybe a little more athletic. But
most part, Trask isn't Tom Brady. He's not a statue.
That's the thing, is that it's going to be night and day. It's going to be a stark contrast between Tom Brady
with either guy. It's going to be.
Yeah, so you're going to have a little bit more fluidity in the pocket, if you will. But what do you think? Is this just? Are we just pandering? Are we just trying to find something positive to say about Kyle Trask to continue the narrative that this is a legitimate quarterback battle? I have never, ever, ever, ever heard even guys like Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. I have never heard on the second day of training camp, "Hey man, that quarterback, he's looking pretty fast." I just don't hear that a lot.
Yeah, so to answer your question, whether it's pandering, yeah, I think so. Pretty sure. Look, I don't want to crap on him. I really don't. But my feelings on Kyle Trask have been pretty well documented. While I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield guy, I like him more than Kyle Trask. I just think he's a better quarterback. I think he gives the Bucs the best option to win, but also I'm going to call it like I see it. And look, if Kyle Trask is better than Baker Mayfield, then I'll come on here and say that Kyle Trask deserves to be the starter and Baker Mayfield doesn't. If by week 8 the Bucs are sitting there with 1 or 2 wins and the season's going down the drain and Baker Mayfield's playing awful, yeah, put Kyle Trask in. Why wouldn't you? So I don't want to harp on him too much. It's just, you're in your third year. You were a second-round pick. You're in your third year, and there's still questions about whether you can even play in the NFL. Not great. It's just, it's not great. Tom Brady retired, and instead of them hitching their wagon to you, they decided to bring in a guy who's probably going to replace you.
I know we brought it up time and time again, but a perfect example is the Atlanta game in Atlanta.
Yeah, they had an
Brady.
Opportunity. They had an opportunity to play him the entire game. Not even play Tom Brady, or if you want to play Tom Brady, put him in for 2 series. Instead, they played Blaine Gabbert for 70% of that game, and Kyle Trask got 2 drives in the fourth quarter
with a bunch of preseason guys.
Yeah, come on.
The same old thing we've seen time and time again. I think the Bucs truly made a decision there. And actions do speak much louder than words. But obviously, we have the rest of the summer to really iron this thing out. I think Kyle Trask still has a fighting chance. I don't want anyone to come on here and think that on day 2 of training camp, we're already writing this guy off.
Again, Baker Mayfield's on his 4th team in a year.
Yeah.
Kyle Trask has a chance.
Yeah. It's not over till it's over. So we do not have an official starter as of yet. But as far as me and Evan, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm committed to the bid. I'm ready to get baked this year.
Yeah, it's always good to get baked.
Yeah,
I think it's what's best for the team. I think so. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think week 1 probably gives you the best shot.
Wanted to talk about some changes as far as this year's training camp goes to last year's training camp. The topic on today's episode is, of course, training camp battles. And to be honest with you, at this position group, I thought we were going to have an open door, but it does not seem to be the case. For the first time in a while, the Buccaneers seem to have picked their 5 starting offensive linemen. Now, this information obviously courtesy of Pewter Report, but setting their offensive line early is a strategic choice the Bucs have made due to the personal turnover that the offensive line underwent this offseason. There is not a single player on the line who will be playing in the same spot he was in last season. Obviously, the big one, Tristan Wirfs moving from right tackle to left tackle. Luke Gedeke is moving from left guard to right tackle. Ryan Jensen stepping back in at center after missing the entire 2022 regular season with an injury. And the team has 2 new guards and veteran Matt Filer, who's playing at left guard, and rookie Cody Mauch at right guard. This is the look that they have picked.
I know. I thought we saw this. Isn't it Mock?
I thought it was Mauch.
I don't know. We're gonna have to get the
Mock because I said Mock and I was corrected and told it was Mauch. I've heard a couple people say Mock, but I heard it was Mauch.
I'm sticking with Mock. Whatever.
Yeah? Okay.
Mauch. Like sounds like I'm getting a coffee. Like
I know, but it's kind of one of those deceptive names.
I mean, but if that's how you pronounce it, I don't know. Whatever. Proceed.
No, you're good. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, for the Bucs as of right now, if this is your week 1 starting offensive line, then you got to think about the depth and the players that are sitting right behind those guys. And if you're the Bucs, I'm not going to say that this offensive line is in better shape than it was last year, but I do think you have to feel a little bit better about the level of depth they have headed into training camp and potentially week 1 of the NFL season. Also, given that everyone stays healthy, because we also saw what happened last year.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Alex, yeah, it is a call-in show, so all the information's right on the screen there. So, yeah, actually, coincidentally, we're talking about training camp battles. A shameless plug. I have an article up on Bucs Nation right now talking about training camp battles, and one of them actually is the guard spot. So you talk about the depth, and I don't love the Bucs tackle depth per se, but their interior depth is actually pretty good. Matt Filer, Cody Mauch, Nick Leverett, Robert Hainsey, and Aaron Stinney. Aaron Stinney come back from the torn ACL/MCL. That's pretty good. I mean, that's 5 guys trying to battle for 2 spots. I don't think the Buccaneers are completely married to a specific offensive line combination because, look, like Cody Mauch from isn't it North Dakota State?
Yeah,
right?
The Bison.
Like small school guy, played tackle there. Transitioning to guard. We all saw how that worked out with Luke Gedeke last year. He was a tackle, transitioned to guard. Might not be a seamless fit. Like Matt Filer is a veteran, might not have it anymore. You don't know. So I don't think they should or are married to the idea of, second day of training camp. Here's the offensive line for week 1. Like, yeah. No, I don't think so. This isn't not like you got Ali Marpet there anymore. So I don't think they're particularly married to that. I think they like what Hainsey did last year at center. I think they want to see him a bit more at guard. I think they really like what Nick Leverett did at guard. And obviously they like Aaron Stinney enough because they keep re-signing him. Even after he tore his ACL and MCL in the preseason last year, is trying to come back from it. They re-signed him to a 1-year deal. So they clearly see something with Aaron Stinney. The depth along the interior is one of, I think, the strengths of the entire team. I think if one of these guys goes down, you're going to have the guy step in, but also like one of those guys I mentioned is probably going to be cut. Like Nick Leverett, Aaron Stinney, like maybe one of those 2, but you probably can't keep all those guys. So we'll have to wait and see, but you would talk about the offensive line being in better shape, and it's so hard to get a read on this offensive line because you don't know. Like you don't even know the best. Like, okay, the best player is Tristan Wirfs, but let's say the second best player who's actually playing the position that he's played the entire time is Ryan Jensen, and he is coming off of a major injury, and he's only getting up there in age. You don't know what he's going to look like. Like, he played 1 game last year and looked fine, but it was 1 game. Tristan Wirfs, who's your best offensive lineman, easily one of the best players in the entire team, one of the best offensive linemen in the entire league.
Well, apparently only number 98 on the top 100.
It's amazing how he goes down that much. Like, that's significant. Like, I understand. Okay, maybe a little bit.
I'm convinced.
people a
I'm
little bit low on
convinced
the
all the
Bucs, but that's
players.
50 spots. Come on.
I'm convinced all the players that voted are just messing with us. Like, I think it's just a massive troll job on everybody. But continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, and then Tristan Wirfs. Okay, he's a great player. You don't know what he's gonna. There's no guarantee what he's gonna look at left tackle. There's none. Lou Gedeke, he wasn't ready for, he wasn't ready for left guard. Like, are we sure he's gonna be ready for right tackle? It's just even if you do start Cody Mock, it's a rookie. Like, it's just there's so much uncertainty. It is so hard to get a read and truly evaluate this offensive line to me right now until I see them out there. And I think it has the potential to be good. Like, if Tristan Wirfs is as good as he is a left tackle as he is a right tackle, okay, that's fantastic. If Luke Gedeke just a natural college position, he goes back there, he's good. Ryan Jensen returns the form. Cody Mock looks like he belongs in the NFL at least. Matt Filer can hold up. This could be one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. But I could also see a scenario where it completely blows up, and it blows up the Bucs season. Because if you have a bad offensive line, especially with a downgrade at quarterback, I just don't see how many football games that you're going to be winning. Like, I don't know. So I think it has the potential to be a pretty good offensive line, but it could spell disaster because you're taking a lot of risk. You're moving a lot of guys around, and it could backfire very quickly.
Yeah, you had mentioned one of those guys along the offensive line, and his development is what I wanted to bring into question. That is Luke Gedeke, former left guard for the Bucs, moving over to right tackle, a guy who played right tackle in college. So the question then becomes, I know you just said there's a lot of unknowns, and he is one of them, but do you think there is more of a possibility that we see him take a step in the right direction playing right tackle as opposed to guard? Because for Gedeke, man, I know it was his rookie year. I know it was trial by fire, but it was rough. We all watched it happen, and then we had to watch Nick Leverett come in and save the day, and that was also pretty tough. So, I mean, for Gedeke, who is now moving around, the Bucs clearly have enough stock into this guy to still consider him a fringe starter on this offensive line, so they think he can do some good on the right side of the line. But do you think that this is a situation, I don't think the transition is going to be as easy as Tristan Wirfs from right tackle to left tackle, but I think putting Gedeke in a more natural position for him, something that he's used to, is going to do dividends as far as like how much we see him progress this year. Like, I would not be shocked if he is an average right tackle, which is all this team kind of needs.
Yeah, well, here's my thing. Like, he can't get much worse than he was at left guard last year.
That's true. That's true. If he plays much worse at right tackle, he'll be gone in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you got an issue. Like, if he plays worse, you got a serious issue. I have to imagine like he's gonna be better. Like, he's got another year of experience. Going up against all defensive linemen, NFL defensive linemen. Going back to his natural college position. I have to imagine he's going to be better. So, yeah, does he need to be average? Like, sure, but second round pick, you're hoping he can give you a solution. And Tristan Wirfs is a fantastic left tackle, because if you can left tackle, right tackle, if you have both of them set, Luke Gedeke's still got 3 years left on his rookie contract. Tristan Wirfs is going to get paid big time. Who was it? The Andrew Thomas just got paid by the Giants. So Tristan Wirfs is going to get paid big time by the Buccaneers. You could have your tackle duo set for the next 5-6 years. And that's huge when, whether it's Kyle Trask, whether it's Baker Mayfield, or whether it's potentially a rookie quarterback stepping into this fold next year, to have those answers along the offensive line, that's huge. So I think Gedeke progressing there is pretty important. If he doesn't, I think you're going to see him in the market for a right tackle next offseason. So I think we're going to get a lot of answers on a lot of the Bucs young players this coming season. So I'm curious to see.
And I will say, for any fans out there of guys like Robert Hainsey or any of the other interior offensive linemen that we have talked about up until this point, Hainsey obviously has some center reps under his belt now. And I wanted to wrap up the offensive line conversation by talking about Ryan Jensen, who will be making his return to start week 1 of the season. obviously good to have Jensen back, right? Like, that is one of the longest tenured offensive linemen we now have at that position. He has proven to be a good center. He has proven to be a capable center, and he sets the tones for the rest of the guys out there. He is a tone setter, if you will. But he's also 33 years old, and that's something to think about. So when we talk about these younger interior offensive linemen, it's important to remember that, you know, guys on the O-line are getting a little bit older, and we may be seeing some of them sooner rather than later. But we have got our first call of the show from the 813. Can you hear me? What's your name? Where are you calling in from?
Hey, man, my name is Alex Chavez. I'm calling in from Tampa, Florida.
Alex, what's going on, man? What's on your mind?
Honestly, guys, I love the show. I really appreciate every single day that you guys come on. I love the content. But I do want to say, I'll be honest with you. I feel like there's a little bit of disrespect for Kyle Trask whenever you guys talk about him.
Yeah. You know, I would be hard pressed to disagree with you, to be honest with you. Like, I agree. But unfortunately, I mean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Kyle Trask, but as someone who defends Kyle Trask, I mean, you can see that we're not the only guys that do this, right? Like, this is, I mean, unfortunately for our boy Kyle Trask, it just seems like he got the shit end of the stick. I want to have faith in him. Don't get me wrong. I have said time and time again that if he goes out there and wins this quarterback job, that'll be the most impressed I have been with him his entire career. Like, I would probably be more amped up and excited to see what week 1 has in store if Kyle Trask wins the job. But, I mean, it seems like it's an uphill battle for him, does it not?
No. I 100% agree with you. I mean, who has the pedigree? Who has, you know, the experience in the NFL? Obviously, it's Baker. I get that 100%. But if we just look back at Kyle Trask's career, right? By the way, full disclosure, I am a Florida fan, so it's not like I'm trying to defend Kyle Trask, but this is what I will say about him. I just feel like most people don't give him a chance, right? So, I mean, with that being said, we're talking about, you know, we'll just go ahead with this 2020 Florida season. He had a QBR rating of 125.5. He was a Heisman finalist. He actually led the Florida Gators to a lot of accomplishments. He had 4,283 yards, 43 TDs, 4 interceptions. I mean, if you're looking for a good quarterback, that I feel like is 100% one of the things that you're looking for. Now, is he a quiet guy? Does he have the best leadership skills? Probably not, but that's just his style. And I feel like most people look down on that. I just feel like most people that say that he doesn't have a raw attitude, you're not a good quarterback. Give the guy a chance. As long as he actually, you know, he puts the work in, he does everything that he needs to do. But I feel like most people don't give him a chance because he's not a raw guy. What's your opinion?
Well, I mean, I don't think you have to be, and I do agree that there are some people out there that, because I've seen the way Gerald McCoy was treated all those years in Tampa, and he was never that type of guy, right? And people got on him about it. People didn't like it. So I definitely agree that there are some fans out there that just won't even really give a player a chance because of the type of leader you are or whatnot, you know. But yeah, you don't have to be a rah guy. That's not the thing. You know, my thing with Kyle Trask is, and I do like, you know, that you brought up the stats, because there's some people, you know, that talk to us about this and want to debate us, but like, you know, you don't bring it up. And like, I do appreciate, you know, that you brought up the numbers, and I do think they're valid. Like, look, like he was in the Heisman talks, like while in Florida. Like, there's a reason for that. That was earned. I'm not saying
it wasn't
that
even a cupcake schedule. I mean, playing for the Gators, right. He's playing the best teams in the SEC.
Right. And
no, absolutely. You're still talking about the only reason why he didn't actually have a chance to go and play in the top 4 of that season was because of a shoe toss. But we're not going to talk about that. That's not what this is about.
Man, that was brutal. That was brutal. I remember that like yesterday.
So, yeah, the tough thing for me is when I'm evaluating quarterbacks, I look for traits that I think can translate well to the NFL. And you can have the debate with me, and I'll let you have it if you think Trask should get a shot. Like, and okay, like that's fine. Like I
Well,
sort of
Kevin,
agree.
yeah, no. So here's the thing. I feel like you're not giving him a chance because he hasn't proved himself in the NFL, but he hasn't had the chances to actually prove himself. So what
true.
is the actual argument to your point?
So my thing is, he hasn't proved himself. However, he's in practice every day. The coaches are watching him every day at practice. They're looking at the film. Right. They know more than we do, right? Like, they're there every day. They're in that locker room. They know more football. One guy on that coaching staff knows more football than all three of us combined right now. So, it's tough, and trust me. And I was one of the guys. I did not think Blaine Gabbert should have played as much as he did versus the Atlanta Falcons. I thought Kyle Trask should have been in. I thought he was going to get in. I don't know why he didn't. And the tough thing though is that I look at it and the clock is ticking. Like, the clock is ticking, and to me, again, now maybe this year he wasn't going to unseat Tom Brady, of course, and that's not his fault that he was put in that situation where Brady was here, and then, like, that's just how it happened. But Baker Mayfield, if he struggles, I believe Baker Mayfield's going to be the starter. If he struggles, like I said, I will be all for giving Kyle Trask an opportunity. You're right, he hasn't had that opportunity yet. However, I also think that if the Buccaneers were confident in what they've seen in the preseasons that he's played and the practices that he's done day in and day out, I also don't know if they go out and sign a Baker Mayfield, because I think they might look at it and say, well, let's give Trask a shot. And I just don't know if they think he's an NFL quarterback.
And I think, honestly, kind of like Evan brought up, the example being the Atlanta game and seeing as much of Blaine Gabbert as we did, I think a major part of the reason that this feels like such an uphill battle for Kyle Trask in training camp is because of the actions of the coaching staff. Like, this is legitimately his first real shot at being a starter in the NFL. This is the most real quarterback competition he has faced since entering the NFL. But I still sit here and feel like it's an uphill battle because of the coaching staff, because of what is said about him every other day, because of the lack of things that we have heard. I guess the volume of things that we have heard as well, compared to a guy like Baker Mayfield, who, just like Evan said, if the Bucs were ready to hitch their wagon to Trask, they wouldn't have signed him. But I think this is, his first shot at a legitimate NFL starting job. But I'm left with the feeling that the coaching staff kind of already has their minds made up. I don't know. What do you think, Alex? And then we'll let you go here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Honestly, my mentality is based on, watching him since he was, a freshman with Florida. I honestly think that he was honestly, I wouldn't say given the opportunity, but like, just because of injury. Franks got injured, he got the opportunity and he didn't let it go. And I feel like that would be the same opportunity that he's having here with the Bucs, because everybody's putting Baker Mayfield as number one. And that's just what everybody else is going to want to do. And I get it. I'm not trying to diss Baker Mayfield or anything like that. But I do feel that, that Kyle has always overcame any adversaries that he's ever actually came across. It's just one of those things that, when it comes to actually playing in the game, he turns it on. And that's something that you can't explain, or that you can't, go through, whether it's in practice or anything like that. But, the coaches have spoke very well of him. But at the same time, when it comes to the game, he, his passer rating, just everything about his game elevates at that moment. But then again, he hasn't played with the first team either. So there's the misconception that everybody else, talks about, it should be Baker. Obviously he speaks well. He does everything well. I'll be honest with you. I don't care who starts, whether it's Baker or Trask, but I just feel like he just hasn't ever had a fair chance when it comes to being in, with the Florida Gators or in the NFL. I honestly do feel that if he actually does get a chance with the Buccaneers to be the first team quarterback, I feel like he will turn it on when the time is needed, because that's just the way that he's always been. He's been the 2-star quarterback, always the underdog, and everybody always gives Baker the chip on his shoulder kind of guy. But if I'm being honest with you, Kyle doesn't drive into that. If there's anybody that should have a chip on his shoulder, it should be Kyle, and he plays up to his potential when the time is needed. But I feel like he's never been given that chance. But that's where we're at today. So I'll let you guys go. But those were my thoughts, and I really appreciate you guys for giving me the time to speak in your show. And honestly, guys, you guys are doing a great job, and I really appreciate everything that you guys do.
Alex, we really appreciate you calling in, buddy. Good as always to talk ball with you.
Roger that.
All right. So, wanted to say one more thing about Kyle Trask here,
and then we'll move on to finish up the show with some defensive stuff. We haven't talked about defense one bit. So.
we got some rookies obviously to talk about as well who have been in the news. But with Kyle Trask, I like that he brought up the scenarios that Trask has found success, because it's kind of a common thing for him. I think in high school, he was never the bona fide starter. He had to go out there after some guy got injured and basically earn the job and never give it back. At Florida, it happened. Felipe Franks went down, got injured. Kyle Trask came in, took the job, never gave it back. I think if Kyle Trask is going to make some noise in 2023, it's going to have to be under those same circumstances. I just do not see a scenario. I mean, I do. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's as likely. But I do not see a very likely scenario where Kyle Trask is your quarterback battle winner headed into week one. I think it's going to have to be, hey, Baker's an ass bucket. Let's pull him and, throw Kyle in there and see what happens. Or, God forbid, Baker goes down with injury and you got to see Kyle make the most of his opportunity. But I think that is more likely to happen than Kyle just winning the job outright. And again, this is the most fair shake at a quarterback job he's ever had. But just like we have emphasized, he has never been a bona fide starter. He had to go out there and get it through one way or another. So as far as Kyle Trask, again, we always wish him luck. We're never going to root against any Bucs players here on the pod. But it does look like an uphill battle. But Alex, we really do appreciate your call, and thanks for your support, buddy. We may have another person. Nope, I thought we did, but we do not. All right. Let's talk about the other side of the football here as we start to wind things down on the show. We got a rookie to talk about to kick things off.
Real quick.
All right, I will let you take the reins. You go ahead.
They added a player on the defensive side of the football. Welcome back, Will Golston.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, it was a long time coming. Will Golston, who said that he remained in playing shape and it was never a question of not playing for the Buccaneers. But he has officially returned to the team for his 11th season?
Yep.
Yeah. Year number 11.
The second longest tenured Buccaneer right now.
Yeah, right behind Levante David.
That's a good trivia question.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you think about the guys who have been on this team, a lot of the names that were tossed around, Will Golston, Levante David, Cam Brate was also in there, no longer on the team. So I remember for a long time, like DeMar Dotson was our guy, was our longest tenured offensive lineman. And then, times change.
And now it's Levante David. Levante Davis has goals in 2013. I think Mike Evans would be the third because he's 2014.
Yeah, year 10 for Mike Evans. When you think about the players on the team, when you think about the veterans, Shaq Barrett's another guy, but not a Bucs draft pick, so hasn't been here his entire career.
Donovan Smith gone now. Was 2015 was a long one.
Yeah, Donovan Smith is now gone. It was pretty funny. There were some pictures floating around on Twitter this week, and people were talking about how surprising it was for the first time in a long time to see a number 76 out there who was not Donovan Smith. So it's going to be an adjustment.
Well, actually, kind of like another thing, it's going to be, and nobody's going to have it, but like if anybody else wears 12, because like you're so used to it being Godwin or Brady at this point. So like it's gonna be interesting. Like it was getting used to me. And I do think it helped. But like suck up wearing 3.
Yeah.
I do. The only thing I think it helped is it was a different jersey. So, like, if it was still the alarm clock things and Suckup was wearing
Jameis.
3, I'd be like, that's weird. Like, that's Jameis
Yeah.
Winston. Like, that's not, like,
Yeah,
but the fact it was a different jersey and the fact that Donovan Smith wore that same jersey, though, it will be weird seeing 76 and not being Donovan Smith.
Yeah, there's a couple of numbers that obviously are going to be weird. Chris Godwin confirmed he's not going to go back to wearing 12. He squashed that bug a little while ago. Yeah, I can understand both sides of it.
We can have that debate some other day. I think people like to debate that stuff, I think.
100%. So let's talk about the defense. Obviously, the return of Will Golston being a big one, which is going to be, I think, is going to be really good for a lot of the younger talent that we're going to be relying on this interior defensive line coming up this season. He spoke highly of Logan Hall, said that kid's ready to take another step. I know on the outside, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, at least the pictures that I've seen from camp, he looks effing yoked. Man, I mean, he looks like that weight room has done him some favors, so I'm excited to see him.
Big year for him. Gotta have it.
Yeah, Jason Light said
Jason Light said so, yeah.
Said he's got to be one of those guys that steps up. Anthony Nelson on the other side of that outside linebacker attack. So, wanted to talk about some of the rookies on this defense, and Servassier Davis has made some noise these past couple of days. Had an interception. Had a couple of interceptions, I think.
I think he had one. He had one in camp, had one, but OTAs, I believe he had 2.
Okay. But, I mean, for some of these rookies coming in, we already talked about Cody Mauch and some of the other guys, but how do you fare on this rookie class? Are you excited to see if they can develop into some full-blown starters here? Because we talked about the implications following the draft. When you're a team like the Bucs who don't necessarily have a championship window open anymore, at least as wide as they used to, I think you're gonna get used to seeing a lot more of these young guys much faster than you would in the other championship year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see like the Kalijah Kancey and stuff because like I think he's gonna play a pretty major role this year. Guys like Servassier Dennis, it's tough because like unless Levante David or Devin White goes down or something goes haywire with Devin White, like Dennis isn't going to play that much. So it's tough to get like too pumped about him right now. But like, yeah, guys like Kalijah Kancey, like a defensive lineman, especially a top 20 pick defensive lineman. I think he's a guy that you could be excited about. The last time they picked a defensive lineman that high was Vita Vea, and obviously it worked out. So I think a guy like Kalijah Kancey can be fun. Obviously Cody Mauch, it's tough. I mean, I know we're just talking about defensive rookies, but like it's tough as an offensive lineman. Like how excited can you be an offensive lineman? But yeah, I am excited to see Kancey and stuff. So we will wait and see how. And I mean, Yaya Diaby, obviously, first Bucs player in Buccaneers history to wear 0. So that's another good trivia question. Who was in like 10 years from now? It would be even better. Like if it's like 20 years from now, Diaby's not on the team, he's not in the NFL anymore. Like, like even like if he turns into a great player, like it might not be a great trivia question, it'd be obvious. But like if he's like a good player, but like not like, in 25 years, not going to remember, the casual fan isn't going to remember that. Good trivia question. Who was the first player in Buccaneers history to wear number 0? So like, yeah, guys like him, like seeing them in action is going to be fun. So yeah. And you're right. Like with the championship window closed for now and the veterans not taking up as many of these spots, it is exciting to see young players, new players take those spots. And also like, I don't know, I'm not saying that like don't care if they win or lose, but like feels like there's a little less at stake. I don't know if it's just me, but like it feels like there's going to be a little bit less at stake every Sunday.
I think you have so much more time, and I'm talking like weeks upon weeks. I think we just have a much bigger window of time to wait and see on some of these players.
And like live like expect the growing pains and live with them.
Yes. Yeah, it's not going to derail a championship season. You're not going to be chasing the 1 seed. 2021 when the Bucs were 13-4, like that's
different.
That's a rough season for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. That's a rough rookie season to really come in and have the expectations that were set. And he wasn't even your full-time outside linebacker starter. I think he only played something like 35 or 40% of the defensive snaps that year. So it wasn't like he was his impact was that heavy, but it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot less time for a guy to come in, figure out his role, find out the differences between the NFL and college, because there are tons, get up to game speed. Like, there are so many growing pains, just like you had said, that these players are going to have to go through. And I think when you're in a position like the Bucs are right now, you're evaluating this team as a whole, and you're evaluating some of the younger guys who are going to potentially stand out for the years to come. And sometimes it takes time. It takes a little bit of time. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka obviously feeling more pressure this season, more now than ever, headed into year number 3. Hopefully the weight room paid off. But like, that's a young guy that I think, when I think of all the young guys on the roster, I think he's got to be towards the top as far as like expectations. And even then, I don't think anyone's expecting him to go out there and get 12 sacks this year.
No, it's weird because it's a critical year and there is pressure on him. But at the same time, if you're, as long as you're productive, like, there's not going to be, like, if the rest of the players aren't, like, you're not going to have as much pressure on you, because, like, if you only win 7 games, like, people aren't going to be like, this is terrible and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
cut these
there's
guys now.
Yeah, there's less pressure in that sense. But then at the same time, there's more pressure because, like, year 3, like, you're a pass rusher. I agree that pass rushers sometimes can take a little bit to develop. But year 3, like, to me, he has to double his sack total. He has 8 career sacks so far, 4 his rookie season, 4 last season. I think he needs 8 this season. And if he gets anything less than that, I'd be disappointed.
I think
because
at least 6.
You're a first round pick. It's time. And
Yeah.
if you don't, to me, that's a signal that maybe you ain't the guy.
Well, we've talked before. I mean, Will Golston was an example that we used a lot. But we've talked before about the sometimes slow development of those outside linebacker guys. I know Will Golston was like a hand in the dirt 4-3 defensive end, and that never ended up working out for him. So a different position than Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. I'm not saying that kicking him to interior is going to be the answer here. But as far as development goes, it takes a while for those edge rushers. Anthony Nelson, whatever year he is in now, finally got paid by the Bucs, but every year he has gotten a little bit better.
Yeah, but JTS has to be better than Nelson.
He has to be better this year. I'm not
Yeah,
discrediting what you
and like, better than Nelson. Like, you're not spending a first round pick on Anthony Nelson.
Right. Yeah, I get what you mean. I think if the Bucs look at Joe Tryon-Shoyinka after those first 4 years are up and they sign him to a 1-year contract, then it's probably not looking like that great of a pick.
Well, the tough thing is, after, I believe, it's after this coming season that they have to make a decision on whether they want to pick up his 5th-year option or not. That's why this is so critical for him. He could either have 2 years guaranteed on his contract or enter the 2024 season as a pending UFA. So that's why the 3rd year for a first-round pick is always pretty critical, because after that 3rd year, this coming off season, the Buccaneers are going to have to decide whether or not they want to pick up the 5th-year option, which now is fully guaranteed. So you can't just cut him and save $12 million or whatever. It doesn't work that way anymore. So now you're going to be committing double-digit money potentially to Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, even if it's just for a year. Do you want to do that if he gets 5.5 sacks this season? I don't know. I think I might want to just play my cards and take the gamble and see how he does in year 4. So that's why I think this is a critical year for him. But I still like the player. So I'm expecting him to get 8+ sacks, and I would be disappointed if he did not.
One more facet of this defense I wanted to talk about before we wrap things up on the show. The cornerback battle, I guess we could call it a battle between Zion McCollum and a couple of other guys as well.
Oh, yeah, the 3rd corner battle. Yeah, for sure.
So Zion McCollum, I think, coming out after a pretty rough rookie season and winning that 3rd corner job, that would do wonders for his stock in the eyes of Bucs fans who want to see him improve year by year. But for a year 2 corner to come in and take this 3 spot, given the competition, do you think that's going to be tough for him?
No. I'm gonna be honest, I really don't.
I mean, he's battling what seems like a couple of camp bodies, right?
Don Gardner, D. Delaney, Josh Hayes. So, like, those are the guys. Anthony Chesley. I don't know, like Deron Lowe. Like, if you can't beat these guys out,
Delaney is probably the name that's going to stick out to most people because he stuck around, right? Super Bowl champion D. Delaney.
I'm pretty sure he's on that team.
Yeah, there you go. So he's obviously a name that stuck around for a little bit. You could call him a veteran at this point, but I think the improvement of Zion McCollum is what we're really just kind of waiting to see. Here.
And the Buccaneers are as well. People forget that the Buccaneers traded a 2023 fourth round pick to trade up to select Zion McCollum. So clearly the Buccaneers love the player. I believe, let me check this really fast, but Zion McCollum's rookie season, he was a good special teamer. He played well on special teams. It's just the defensive part of it. Whenever he was thrown into the fire at corner, whether Jamel Dean was down or Sean Murphy Bunting or Carlton Davis was down, wasn't pretty at times. And I think that is where you run into a little bit of trouble when it comes to Zion McCollum. And I think the Buccaneers are definitely hoping that he's a guy that year 2 makes a difference. The one thing that worries me is we talk about, okay, pass rush take some time. Typically corners take even longer. I think corner, the two toughest positions to play in the NFL are quarterback and cornerback. I think they're the two toughest to play, especially nowadays with the rules and everything to play corner in the NFL. So that's tough. You're going to be relying on a second-year player who did not have a promising rookie season on defense to play a pretty big role for you. That's a tough ask. So I'm hopeful. I don't know if I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I'm not necessarily pessimistic. I don't think Zion McCollum. I'm not completely out on Zion McCollum. I like the pre-draft. I like the draft pick. I like the traits he's got, but it's a risk. And I think no matter who they put there is a risk. I mean, you're talking about Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean. That is a significant drop off to whoever you put there. And I'm not reporting anything. I haven't heard a single thing about this from anybody. It wouldn't shock me if they added a veteran corner at some point. If they're looking at this and let's say like after the first preseason game, they're like, yo, none of these 4 or 5 guys can hang. Like, it's just not happening. Like, we got to sign some sort of veteran so we don't get embarrassed out there. I could see that happening. If they're going to add another veteran to the team, I think it would be a corner. I don't think it'd be any other position. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, just saying if they do add a veteran, I could see that. But yeah, Zion McCollum entering a pretty, I wouldn't say critical year for his career, but entering a pretty big opportunity, an opportunity for him. And we'll have to see if he can take it.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, the drop-off between the cornerback 2 spot and the level of talent who's going to be filling in at cornerback 3. And while I do have faith in Zion McCollum to improve a bit as a player, I would not be shocked for this to be a season like we have seen in years past, where it seems like every other week, you have a different starting cornerback 3, kind of move this guy around, figure out where his role is going to be. Like, I'm confident in Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean at this point. I am. They've played well enough. Jamel Dean needed to play his ass off last year, and he did. Carlton Davis, had a big contract year a couple of years ago, played well and got paid. So they are established. I really do not have any big gripes with either of those two coming into the season. I know some people are critical of Carlton Davis after his comments about a month ago, but realistically, I agree with you in the sense that by week 2 or 3 of the regular NFL season, I think it'll look a lot like the Richard Sherman situation from a couple of years back where, hey, here's a name that you've probably heard before, maybe hasn't been on a team, but still has enough gas left in the tank to fill in. A veteran on a fill-in basis, I think, is what this cornerback room is going to need. But we just have to wait and see. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out. But like you said, we're going to know what this secondary batch of cornerbacks is made of probably after that second preseason game.
I think pretty quickly.
Yeah. We saw it happen last year where the depth
I think you're
bad.
actually you're going to see it after the first because, like, I don't know how much Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean are going to play in the preseason.
That's true. Maybe get one or two series.
Yeah,
from those
like
guys.
I think you're going to see a lot of these guys that are competing. So like I think you're going to see them all. So like if they all don't look good, like I think to me, if you're Jason Light, you gotta figure out something. Like if you look at that and all of them are struggling, like you got to do something.
And
Like,
you're going to see a lot of these guys.
Like you can't just throw those guys to the wolves.
You're going to see a lot of these guys throughout the preseason, as they should. 100%. I think the least amount of time that you can keep your starters on the field, especially this year, but I think the least amount of time you can keep Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean on the field is going to benefit you in the long run. But this is what the preseason is for, seeing what these guys are made of, seeing what they can bring to the table, and if they're going to be able to hang in the NFL come week 1 in Minnesota. But doesn't look like we have any more calls. Checking in on the live chat, our moderator, Willie Beeman, holding it down. Christopher Cole also saying hello. Says Vita Hall and Cansey will be your starters. JTS needs to finish. I do agree with that, Chris. JTS even said that himself. Also, Christopher Cole, I got a notification on Facebook this week that said we have been friends for 2 years. So congratulations, buddy. We appreciate your support. With that being said, I think that's just about going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us, watching live with us on YouTube tonight. And shout out to our buddy Alex who called in and defended Kyle Trask. We don't get that a lot, and it is always appreciated. Great football discussions to be had. Remember, on future shows, if we have the phone lines open, you can always give us a call, 305-224-1968. Looking forward to incorporating this into the show in some unique ways as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season. But a little over 2 weeks away from the first preseason game. It'll be the first time we have seen the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their uniforms since that fateful day back in January. But hopefully we can brush all the rust off of that and come out and give people something to be excited about. You can find the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily. You can also check him out on Twitter at EvanNFL and check out his written work at BucsNation.com. What are you working on?
Not a whole lot at the moment. Obviously, just like I said, just a few days ago, published the training camp battles article. So go check that out. I also talk about a battle that we didn't even discuss, which is the wide receivers. So go check that out as well. And then follow along for Bucs Nation for training camp updates, stories, and stuff like that. It's not just me. We got a great team. So follow along, and thanks for all the support. Appreciate it.
Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter at Retticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. Thank you guys again for hanging out with us tonight. We always appreciate your support. We love the phone calls, love hearing from you, and look forward to doing it again soon. Next time we talk to you, we'll probably get more in-depth on some position battles that we did not talk about today and give you all the latest topics and news from Buccaneers training camp. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you in the next one. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.